Okay, we're back. Now, so did you take notes? Let's compare my notes with your notes. What was she talking about? She was talking about social influence. Influence what? Behaviors. She talked about experiments. Experiments of Card, the Abraham, and then after that, how it works. Okay, how social influence works and the differences. Okay, and she said also about when people they eat together. Yes, they eat more and they run faster when they have each other together. Even when we talk about animals, and she talked about Professor comparatively, they classified the whole things by the Solomon. He classified the whole things. Solomon, his name. He went with the Sanders, responded to the things. So lots of information. Okay, lots of percentage ratios. Now, so let's listen to the questions and read them.
What is the main topic of the lecture?
So, what is the main topic of the lecture? The problem inherited 9 groups, like decisions, ways that individuals become popular in groups, the influence of groups on individual behaviors, the differences in social influences across the cultures. So, as much as it sounds like for you nice, but it's not like this is not the correct answer, because some people will say, yeah, he's talking about social influences, so it's D. No, here he said something important. He said what? He said across cultures. Across cultures. She didn't talk about cultures, but she talked about the influence. Very nice. A group of people on individual behavior. Okay? Very nice. Now let's go next. So, according to the professor, okay, so according to the professor, what are like the 2 choices that the Ash and Abraham studied? Now, a larger group exerted significantly more pressure than a smaller group. Subject confirmed to group opinion in more than 1/3 of the trials. When the subject knows the group socially, there is greater pressure to confront. Majority opinion has as much influence as anonymous opinion. So, now she didn't talk about majority here, and here it's not about large group and other things. So technically the correct answer is the subject confirmed the opinions. And the other thing with subject knows confirm opinions because we're talking about the number of them. Okay, so number of them, it was yes 1/3 of the trials, 1/3 like passed the whole thing. And the subjects especially here like greater pressure to confirm that what she said like clearly. Okay?
Listen to part of a lecture in a sociology class.
So social influence involves the changes in behavior influenced by the actions of other people. Social influence can come about for a variety.
Okay, so why did she say this? She regretted the result of the experiment. She knew that the students would not like the information. she needed to correct what she had said in a previous statement. She neglected to mention the important fact. So which one? Which one do you think here? She said, I'm sorry, let's read the sentence again. I'm sorry, the experimental group. So she was doing what? Yes, correct. She was correcting the information she said. Like she said something and she corrected that thing. That's why she said, I'm sorry, and corrected the whole thing.
Of reasons, on a continuum from mere suggestion to, in the more severe form, well, to torture. How does social influence work? Well, first, we must become aware of a difference between ourselves and the values or behaviors of other people. There are a great many studies of social influence.
So 9, what generally happens after a group makes a decision? Some groups members regret their decision. At least one group member presents new ideas. As a whole, the group is even more united in its judgment. The popular group members compete for leadership. So which one? Correct. Yes. The whole group is even more united in judgment. As a whole, the group is even more united in a judgment better than one person. Okay?
That demonstrate how the presence of others can cause us to change our attitudes or actions. Studies show that people eat more when dining.
Forgot that I muted the thing without speaking. So based on the information the lecture indicates whether the statement describes the ASH studies. For each statement, choose yes or no. So we said like this. From our notes, we look at our notes. Only one subject is being tested. That's correct because he said like everyone is being tested alone. Okay, only one subject. He didn't test them as a group. He tested them as one individual person. Okay. Now the cards can be interpreted several ways. No, it's actually just one way. You choose like which line is equal to that line. That's all. So that's a no. Now number C, some of the group collaborated with the experimenter. So that means they actually worked with him and other things. Yes, that's true. Okay. And we answered that thing. Yes, yes, and no.
Dining
Now
with
let's move to the
others,
next one.
then I'm talking about dining out here. So
So he said here, what is the professor's attitude about the studies on social influence? Now, she seems surprised by the results. She appears to be happy and interested in them. She needs more information, or she needs more information about them. She doubts that there is particular application. So which one? Very nice. That's correct. she appears to be very interested in them because she showed interest and she said, oh wow, amazing, and all of these words that shows that I'm interested in that. Okay. Thank you. Let's go for the next video.
Listen to part of a lecture in an art history class.
We know that the Chinese had been aware of basic photographic principles as early as the 5th century BC, and Leonardo da Vinci experimented with a darkroom in the 1500s. But it was a number of discoveries in chemistry during the 18th century that accelerated the development of modern photography. The discovery that silver salts were light-sensitive led to experimentation with images of light on a surface that had been coated with silver. Often glass was used in the early images, but the problem was that these images were ephemeral, fading after only a short time. Some of the chemists who worked with them called them fairy pictures and considered them that they were only momentary creations, that they'd disappear. Okay, how to fix the image permanently was one of the most important challenges of the early photographer chemists. In France, in about 1820, Nicéphore Niepce discovered a method for fixing the image after a long exposure time, probably 8 hours. So, although his work was considered interesting, it was largely dismissed as impractical. Nevertheless, one of his associates, Louis Daguerre, managed to find a way to reduce the exposure time to less than 20 minutes. So the story goes, in 1835, Daguerre was experimenting with some exposed plates, and he put a couple of them into his chemical cupboard. So a few days later, he opened the cupboard, and to his surprise, the latent images on the plates had developed. At first he couldn't figure out why, but eventually he concluded that this must have occurred as a result of mercury vapor from a broken thermometer that was also enclosed in the cupboard. Supposedly, from this fortunate accident, he was able to invent a process for developing latent images on exposed plates. The process itself was somewhat complicated. First, he exposed copper plates to iodine, which released fumes of light-sensitive silver iodide. These copper plates were used to capture the image. And by the way, they had to be used almost immediately after their exposure to the iodine. So the image on the plate was then exposed to light for 10 to 20 minutes. The plate was developed over mercury, heated to about 75 degrees centigrade, that caused the mercury to amalgamate with the silver. Now here's the ingenious part. He then fixed the image in a warm solution of common salt, but later he began using sodium sulfite. Anyway, after he rinsed the plate in hot distilled water, a white image was left permanently on the plate, and the quality was really quite amazing. But the process had its limitations. First, the images couldn't be reproduced, so each one was a unique piece, and that greatly increased the cost of photography. Second, the image was reversed, so the subjects would actually see themselves as though they were looking in a mirror, although in the case of portraits, the fact that people were accustomed to seeing themselves in a mirror made this problem less urgent than some of the others. Nevertheless, some photographers did point their cameras at a mirrored reflection of the image that they wanted to capture so that the reflection would be reversed and a true image could be produced. Okay. Third, the chemicals and the fumes that they released were highly toxic, so photography was a very dangerous occupation. Fourth, the surface of the image was extremely fragile and had to be protected, often under glass, so they didn't disintegrate from handling. The beautiful cases that were made to hold the early images became popular not only for aesthetic purposes, but also for very practical reasons. And finally, although the exposure time had been radically reduced, it was still inconveniently long, at 20 minutes, especially for portraits, since people would have to sit still in the sun for that length of time. Elaborate headrests were constructed to keep the subjects from moving so that the image wouldn't be ruined, and many people simply didn't want to endure the discomfort. But by the mid-1800s, improvements in chemistry and optics had resolved most of these issues. Bromide as well as iodine sensitized the plates, and some photographers were even using chlorine in an effort to decrease exposure time. The portrait lens was also improved by reducing the size of the opening and limiting the amount of light that could enter, so the exposure time was about 20 seconds instead of 20 minutes. And negative film had been introduced in in England, and negatives permitted the production of multiple copies from a single image. So, photography was on its way to becoming a popular profession and pastime.
"12. What is the main topic of this lecture?" "13. According to the professor, what two limitations were noted in Daguerre's process for developing and fixing latent images?" "14. Listen again to part of the lecture, and then answer the following question.
At first he couldn't figure out why, but eventually he concluded that this must have occurred as a result of mercury vapor from a broken thermometer that was also enclosed in the cupboard. Supposedly, from this fortunate accident, he was able to invent a process for developing latent images on exposed plates.
Why does the professor say this?
Supposedly, from this fortunate accident, he was able to invent a process for developing latent images on exposed plates.
"15. What substance was first used to fix the images?" "16. What can we assume about photographers in the 1800s? "17. In what order does the professor explain photographic principles?
Okay, so after listening to this, let's try to continue the things.
Well, what is the main topic of this lecture?
What do you think is the main topic of this lecture? The processing of fixing a photograph, the problem of exposure time, the experiments by Lewis diagram, and the history of early photography. So what do you think? Correct. Very nice. It's the history of early photography. Okay? Because all of the rest, some of them are minor details, and some of them are not talking about like the whole idea. We need the main idea. So as we agreed before, now we've that we need always to focus on the main idea, not the minor things. Sometimes we have minor things, those are not important. I need the main idea about the whole thing. Now, let's go next. Sorry, I forgot the mute again. So according to the professor, what two limitations were noted in diagram? Now the limitation that we talk about, you remember them from your notes? Let's read them from your notes. One, yes, it's unique. Let's talk about that thing. It's unique. It's reversed. It's mirror. Highly toxic chemicals. Fragile surface. And inconveniently long. The wait like for minutes, 20 minutes, or somehow long. So here, if we're talking about it, so it was delicate. Delicate, that means fragile, can be broken. Multiple images would not okay because it's unique. But the photo disappears after a few minutes. No, he didn't say something about this. And the exposure time was still several hours. No, he said like minutes, not hours at the end. Okay?
Listen to part of a lecture in an art history class.
We know that the Chinese had been aware of basic photographic principles as early as the 5th century BC, and Leonardo da Vinci experimented with a darkroom in the 1500s. But it was a number of discoveries in chemistry during the 18th century that accelerated the development of modern photography. The discovery that silver salts were light sensitive led to experimentation with images of light on a surface that had been coated with silver. Often glass was used in the
why does the professor say this? Okay, think about it. Was he trying to generate interest in the topic? He makes references to a story in the textbook. Okay, so he's not sure whether information is accurate. He wants the student to use their imagination. So which one? Huh. Correct. Okay, he's not sure whether the information is accurate or not. That's why he said supposedly. Supposedly from the fortune action, supposedly. But he's not sure of that thing.
Early images.
Oh, what substance? Hot water? They didn't talk about hot water, so we eliminate it. Now, so when we try to eliminate, we will eliminate hot water. Now, mercury vapor, table salt, and copper powder. So first use. Huh. Very nice, correct. The table salt. So the table salt was the first thing that they used for, very nice, fixing that thing. Someone asked me, how about the mercury vapor? No, the mercury vapor was an accident and it was not fixing the thing. We're talking about something that they used after that to fix that thing, okay? So the idea here is understanding which one is correct. What is the thing like that he said? Okay, he said the mercury, and the mercury was an accident, helped them to to make the image appear or something like that. But when he talked about like here, in my notes, when he talked about the salt, okay, so he talked about it, that's the first way of like improving and like fixing the image, okay?
But the problem
Assume, what can we assume about photographers in the 1800s? Most of them had originally been painters before they become interested in photography. Portrait photography were in the highest demand, very nice, since people want images. There were only a few photographers who were willing to work such as a new profession. Some of them must have experienced any health problem as a result of their laboratory work. Which one? From your notes. So read your notes. Correct. That's true. Some of them have experience in health problems as a result of their laboratory work. Because one of the things that they talk about photography, the toxic chemicals were something like important about that process. We had like toxic chemicals, and it can kill people. Okay.
was that these images were ephemeral, fading after only a short time. Some of the chemists who worked with them called them fairy pictures and considered them that they were only momentary creations, that they'd disappear.
In what order does the professor explain photographic principles? From the least to the most important fact in a chronicle sequence of events, okay? Now, in order of the step in photography process, the advantage before the disadvantage. So which one? What did he say? Correct. He talked about the sequence, the chronological sequence of the events. Like, for example, okay, it developed from this, into this, into this. This is the chronological sequence of events, okay? Now, let's go next.
Here.
prepare yourself to take notes. Now, so focus to take notes. Again, shall we start?